Welcome to the show, and as we enter this final week before Christmas, Merry Christmas to you all. I have a great show planned for you today. Later on, I'll have with me Delegate Randy Swartzmiller, who has announced in the past 10 days or so that he is going to be a candidate for state senate in the 1st Senatorial District here in West Virginia. But first, we'll start with some of our usual features. And I want to start off sticking with politics, and that's the governor's race. West Virginia Metro News released a poll this week for the first time showing kind of where things stand with the governor's race on the Democratic side of things, and three candidates really high up in the polling numbers, or kind of pretty even in the polling numbers, but Stephen Smith with the lead. Stephen Smith, first-time political candidate and really newcomer to the political scene in West Virginia, has got the early lead, and perhaps not surprising in some ways, but in other ways a little bit surprising. He leads over State Senator Ron Stallings, who's been a state senator for quite some time, and also Ben Salango, a Kanawha County commissioner, who's also running for governor. And I say not surprising for some reasons, but surprising for some is that, you know, Stephen Smith has really been running a grassroots type campaign where he's going out and doing all these town halls, almost 150 or so town halls throughout the state of West Virginia. He's got these county captains, these constituency captains. It's really a ground game that he's running here in West Virginia. Kind of the first time we've seen that in the state of West Virginia, where it's not just someone flooding the TVs with all kinds of ads and doing that type of thing, but really going out and talking to people and going out and being amongst the people. And a lot of people said, is this going to work, this type of strategy? Nobody knew who he was a year ago. He was running the West Virginia Healthy Kids and Healthy Families organization. But it appears to be working because he does lead the polls here now, and over a longtime state senator who has some name recognition, and also a Kanawha County commissioner. So it'll be interesting to see. The other two got into the race much later than Stephen Smith did. That's why I said in some ways not surprising, because he's been in the race longer. It'll be interesting to see now as money comes into maybe those gentlemen that have been in politics in the past, and they're able to use maybe some TV buys and things like that, whether they're able to catch up, or whether the kind of groundwork that Stephen Smith has laid over the last year, having all these people out that are going to be talking about him and talking to their friends about him, is going to work. So I think really interesting race here that's going to shape up in the state of West Virginia. And I've kind of tried to check out all of the campaigns and look at them, and I think some quality candidates there. But I've gotten to know Stephen Smith over the last year. I didn't know him at all before that, and I've been really impressed with what he has to say and what he's doing. So not surprising that he's in the lead here early on to determine who's going to likely take on Governor Justice, although, of course, Woody Thrasher's been hitting the airwaves hard already trying to take on the governor in the Republican primary. So we'll keep an eye on that as we move ahead. I'll give you a legal tip here this week also. And last week I talked about what is a deposition, and we talked all about that. But another term that people hear sometimes because they have to go to it or attend it, and that is, what is a mediation? Sometimes somebody will say, hey, I have to go to a mediation. What's that all about? What is it? A mediation is an attempt to get the parties to a dispute together to see if a neutral person called a mediator can help them resolve their differences. A mediator has no power. He's not a judge, he or she. It could not an arbitrator that decides anything. It's just someone that tries to act as a go-between. And typically what happens is the parties to dispute will show up at one location that's predetermined, whether it be a lawyer's office, a conference room somewhere, whatever it may be. And sometimes they'll start off in the same room together, sometimes it'll be in separate rooms, but anyway, usually it's just a brief time together in the same room to shake hands and see who all's there. Sometimes there's a brief introductory thing given by one of the attorneys for one side or the other or both. And then the mediator will split the two sides, or sometimes there's 3 sides or 4 sides, into separate rooms. And he'll go in individually and talk to one room and see what their interests are and what they're looking for, and then maybe communicate that to the other room and see what their interests are and what they're looking for, and see if he can help those sides find some type of common ground, whether it be monetary in some instances, or certain issues, surrounding whether maybe employment or something else of that nature, maybe some non-monetary terms like something remaining confidential or whatever it may be. But the mediator tries to see if he can help the sides out. Usually as long as there's progress being made and the mediator determines that everybody's moving in the right direction toward some type of potential deal or resolution, then the mediation will continue on. If it reaches a point where the mediator determines that progress is not being made anymore, or that a deal is not going to be reached, then the mediator may declare an impasse or say, hey, we're not going to get anywhere, and then or one side or the other may just leave sometimes, and then the thing is over, and whatever dispute may exist continues on through either the court system or whatever other process may be in place. So, and then if it does work out, then hopefully decide to reach a deal. At the end of the day, they typically will sign up a little piece of paper agreeing to the terms, and then later on there's a more formal document generated. But that's generally what a mediation is. So happens a lot now in court cases these days. When I first started practicing 20 years ago or so, it was almost rare, but it was starting to become more and more common. Now, a lot of judges are actually ordering that mediation take place in every case before it goes to a trial, et cetera. And even in the cases where the judges aren't ordering it, a lot of times the parties will talk, their attorneys will talk and say, hey, maybe it'd be a good idea we get together and mediate this case at some point and see if we can resolve it. Always good to resolve differences, and that way if you can, it saves people time, it gives you some certainty, it saves some money. And sometimes it's successful and sometimes it's not. But that's generally what a mediation is. If you have to go to one and you're a party to a dispute, you typically only have to speak to your attorney. You don't really have to speak to anybody else. You can, though, sometimes speak to the mediator, but usually it's with your attorney there, and only if you really want to. Nobody's going to force you to say anything or do anything if you don't want to. So hopefully that helps explain the process of mediation a little bit more. Give you a quote here this week as well, and I chose a Christmas quote with it being that time of year, and this one comes from Pope Francis, who is really turned out very quickly to be one of our more quotable popes that we've ever had. And really, in today's modern age, I mean, Pope Francis puts things out on social media a lot, on Twitter, has a Twitter handle, and always interesting to follow. But this is something that he said, that God never gives someone a gift that they are not capable of receiving. If he gives us the gift of Christmas, it is because we all have the ability to understand and receive it. I thought that was interesting. You know, we do have Christmas, and it's because God believes that we have the ability to understand what it truly is all about. And sometimes this time of year, it's, you know, some of us forget what it's about. We think about the presents and the cookies and the parades and all the things that go with Christmas. But, you know, the true meaning of the season is the birth of Jesus, and that's what we're celebrating, and we need to keep that in mind. And the best way we can do that is, you know, to follow his example, to follow his principles and treat other people in that way. And that's the true meaning of Christmas, and hopefully we can keep it in our hearts throughout the entire year. We need to take a break. When I come back, I'll have with me Delegate Randy Swartzmiller. We'll be talking all about his decision to run for state senate. Stay with us here on the Jamie Bordas Show.
Ho, 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 ho. Call Panhandle. Oh, thank goodness.
Panhandle Cleaning and Restoration is ready to handle any size emergency at a moment's notice. From our family to yours, Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Oh, ho, 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 ho.
Sunset Motors continues to be the 2019 Ohio Valley leader in Jeep, Ram, Chrysler, and Dodge sales. Now get employee pricing plus on 2020 models at the Big Finish event. Get a Ram 4x4 for just $28,791, or lease a Bighorn for just $299 per month. Lease a new Compass Latitude for $279 per month, or a Cherokee Latitude Plus for just $289 per month, or an all-new Gladiator Sport.
You can love where you drive at Sunset.
Welcome back to the show. This is my favorite time each week when I have a guest with me, and this week's no different. I have with me Delegate Randy Swartzmiller, who is a delegate in the first House delegate here in West Virginia. He's now going to be running for state senate. Thank you so much for being here.
It's great to be here. Thank you.
So, big announcement last week that you're going to be running for state senate. You know, of course, this is your second stint in the House. That you were elected in 2018. I've been serving since last January as a House member, and you know, now decided to kind of take the leap, so to speak, to the Senate. And what led you to that decision?
Well, when I went back in 18, it was a different culture down there. I'd been out for 4 years, and I could see things had changed. And the culture change, I didn't believe was a good one. It wasn't good for people, and it wasn't good for West Virginia. And the biggest problem was that people were getting left out of the equation. And I've always been a person to believe that we're there to serve the people and not big out-of-state corporations, and that's kind of what's been taking place. So I'm getting in the race next year to give people a choice.
Now, you know, people may look at you and say, well, look, can't you do that in the House? I mean, you're already in the House, and you've been elected there, and your term is going to be up. Mind you, only 2-year term, so you're going to serve out the rest of your term in the House. But why the difference with the Senate, and how do you feel like you can have more of an impact there?
Well, that's a great question, and from the House, you got 100 members in the House, 100 members throughout the state, and I have been able to get things over the years accomplished in the House. But what's happened is that the Senate leadership has gone to a radical agenda, and we have a one great senator up here, Senator Ehlenfeld, who's doing a great job, and he needs help over here. We are getting left behind in the Northern Panhandle when it comes to money for roads and just money to fund programs. And if we had two people working together down there, rather than trying to follow, you know, the Senate president's lead on everything, we could get more back here for the folks, and the folks would have a much stronger voice. So it's just, I've kind of reached a crossroads in my career where I feel now I can do more from being in the Senate than I can the House.
You know, you mentioned Senator Ehlenfeld. Of course, he had the victory in 2018, defeating Ryan Ferns, who at the time was the Senate Majority Leader, and a lot of that had to do with, I think, education. You know, and the people wanted to see changes with respect to education here in West Virginia. A lot of the teachers, the school service personnel, got behind Bill Ehlenfeld and saw what he was doing, saw what education meant to him, and decided, hey, let's make a change here. And as you mentioned, you know, some of the leadership, though, is still the same in the Senate. Mitch Carmichael, still the Senate president. And really, you know, that can't change until there's enough Democratic senators elected, including here in the Northern Panhandle, to be able to flip that vote and get someone else as the Senate president. You know, what's the thought there in terms of, you know, is there an opportunity for there to be a change within the leadership of the Senate, to change houses, to have an opportunity to be able to say, hey, this isn't working for West Virginia. You don't understand West Virginians. You don't understand what our teachers need, what our school service personnel need, what the roads need, et cetera, and to make a change there.
Well, that's exactly why I am getting in the race, to give people a choice, because the education issue, even after that election, was still ongoing. We were dealing with it last year. You know, the House voted the bill down. That wasn't good enough, so we ended up in a special session, and then the Senate passed it out, and then once they passed it out, they adjourned and sent it to the House. So basically it was just, here it is, you know, do with it as you may. They just left town. Normally when you have these type of special sessions, both bodies stay in until the bill's completed. But it's that type of behavior, along with how they've treated the working men and women of the state and the valley, that I think have people very upset about who's representing them, or I guess I should say who's not representing them and giving them a voice. So my candidacy is not to only give people a voice, but to give them hope again. I think when people have hope, they start to believe in their government, that they can trust them and that they'll work for them, and that's what I'm about. And you know, we talked a little bit about grassroots campaigning. Well, that's exactly what I will be doing. I'll be knocking on doors, and you know, I'll be coming to the different towns and the rural areas and the back roads, whatever it takes. I want to talk to people so they get to know me, so then they can make a choice in November.
You know, with respect to the House race that you've won in the past, you know, it's been there in Hancock County where you live, and now you're talking about the Senate where you've got, you know, stretches down the Panhandle now. You've got to go through Brooke County and Ohio County, I think even a little bit of Marshall that your district covers, and so you got a lot of people to get out there and talk to. How do you reach out to those people that maybe, you know, haven't been represented by you before, like the people in Hancock County have, and to say, you know, I can do this for Brooke County, I can do this for Ohio County, I can do this for Marshall County, I can do this for the whole Northern Panhandle?
Well, it'll be one person at a time, and that's how we'll go about it. I mean, I've been in politics for a number of years, so I think I have some name recognition in the area. And you know, when we start to get down into Marshall, into that part, I actually spent a lot of time in Tyler County and Sistersville over the years, because that's where my dad's family's from. And so we have folks up that way too that can help us, relatives and stuff. My dad's family had 12 kids, and I've got a lot of cousins, and they're scattered out. So, but it's going to be name recognition. It's going to be getting out, meeting people, and of course, you know, we'll be doing things, you know, advertising and digital media also to reach out to people and let them know who Randy Swartzmiller is.
We need to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about that, exactly who Randy Swartzmiller is and why he thinks he should be the one elected to this position. Stay with us here on the Jamie Bordas Show.
Banks did great today. He looks great after his spa day.
For being such a good boy, we'll take these two.
Great.
Thanks to my free Kasasa cashback checking account from Belmont Savings Bank, my Kasasa cash is paying for my dog's treats.
Kasasa pays you cash back on everyday debit card purchases, plus refunds on ATM withdrawal fees nationwide. Open your account today at Belmont Savings Bank to take back banking and enjoy monthly cash rewards with Kasasa.
Welcome back to the show. I've been speaking with my guest, Delegate Randy Swartzmiller, who's going to be running for state senate in 2020. And, we're talking about, why you're running, but let's talk a little bit about who you are and your background. I mean, what led you into getting into this political arena in the first place, and kind of what's your day life like outside of politics?
Well, when I first got into politics, my girls were young, and I was seeing things going on a state level that, I just thought could be different, could be a little bit better. So I just thought, rather than try to be a Monday morning quarterback, I would get involved. And so I ran in, first election was 2001, and but also I worked at Weirton Steel. I was a third generation steel worker for 20 years at Weirton Steel, and a lot of my co-workers, they would be upset about different things, and I would listen to them, and I'm thinking, you got every right to be upset, it's just not right. And so when I started talking to them about, hey, I'm thinking about doing this, they were all behind me. We need one of us down there working for us that understands what we go through every day. So that was a driving factor behind me getting in politics originally.
It's interesting you say that, because I'm down at the Capitol sometimes, and there's some exceptions, but generally speaking, when you walk around, there aren't a lot of folks that have worked in industrial type jobs. There aren't a lot of folks representing us that have worked, maybe paycheck to paycheck even. There are a lot of folks down there that, politics is the end game for them, so to speak. And you're somebody that's worked by people that are hardworking blue collar folks on a day-to-day basis. What experiences do you draw from that when you're down there in the legislature, and how does that help you serve people?
Well, it's a tremendous help. I mean, because when people are talking about trying to get by, and when people are talking about insurance and deductibles, I can relate to all that. I can relate to when they talk about being worried about their job, because I've been laid off. I've been handed pink slips before, and my wife and I would look at each other and, okay, what are we going to have to adjust here to, get through this? So, a lot of people can say, yeah, I understand, feel your pain. Well, unless you've walked in their shoes, you don't feel their pain. So I feel that I have a one-on-one relationship with how they feel. I grew up in the country too, and so I know what it was like to go out and work in a hayfield for $1 an hour, and you appreciate money, and the meaning of it, how hard you have to work for money and make every dollar go as far as you can. So I'm just not somebody that is all polished and got into politics because I was trying to elevate my career. I got in to truly represent people, and my slogan over the years has always been people first, and that's what I'm going to be running this time, and it's going to be keeping people first. But it's just, I'm going to spread Randy Swartzmiller out a little further out of the 1st House District and into the 1st Senatorial District to give people that voice.
You're going to be running against an incumbent in Ryan Weld, first-time senator, and always a challenge anytime you're running against an incumbent in a particular spot. But you talked about you want to give people a choice, and what do you think that choice is, and what's the difference that you would bring to the table for maybe the current representation?
Well, they're day and night. Because I'm truly in it for the people. I think the people in Hancock and Brook that I've represented over the years will tell you I'm a people person. I've always reached out to return my calls and go look at roads. I want to give people that choice to put trust back into their government. And I'm not a party guy as far as political parties. I believe we're all in this together. We're all Mountaineers. We're all West Virginians. And you know, I don't play the political card when I'm in Charleston. I do what's best for the district. And I think that's a big fundamental difference right there. I vote for what's best for the people that sent me there. Remember where I come from, know where my roots are, and I'll continue to do that from the Senate side.
You know, there's some opportunities, I think, in this district. You know, of course, right up in Weirton where you are, there's a lot of land available, you know, that's got a river close to the Pittsburgh airport. I think I timed it one day, and it was like 18 to 20 minutes or from the Pittsburgh airport to Weirton. Major highways, you know, close to here. You know, how in the position that you're in can you help to develop the economy, you know, not only in Weirton but up and down the Panhandle?
One of the biggest challenges we've seen in the far north in Hancock County and Brook is property inventory. But we're starting to get some properties freed up now that ArcelorMittal had sold to Frontier, the real estate company. They've been cleaning up those properties. So I believe there's going to be a lot of opportunities come because now we'll have properties that adjoin with rail, river, interstate, the airport. So there's going to be some good opportunities up there. And then if you get a little further in the north, there's a lot of fertile ground up there to be developed, and there's been some interest in that lately. As you start to move down into Brook, you know, with the addition of the bridge that's going to be going in down there, that should open up some opportunities there. And then we come right on down into Wheeling and Marshall County. I mean, the growth here in Wheeling, what some of the folks have been doing here has been good. You know, with the Highlands, that was a project I worked on years ago when we did the Cabela's project, when we put bonding in place to do that. But those are the type of things that I'll continue to work for, because when we have business move in and those type of businesses especially, those are good benefits that, you know, people can raise a family on, and we got to have jobs. That's the main thing.
No doubt about that. Well, I appreciate you being here today. I certainly wish you luck with this upcoming legislative session with your role as a House delegate, and then also with the campaign for Senate, and wish you and your family a very Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you too. Thank you.
All right. We need to take a break. When we come back, we wrap it up with sports. Stay with us here on the Jamie Bordas Show.
A world of Christmas wonder awaits at Ogilvy in Wheeling, West Virginia. Experience the magic of the season.
When reviewing your oil and gas offers or royalty check statements, do you wonder, am I being offered a fair amount? Do I feel comfortable reading the statement? Do I have peace of mind? If you answered no to these questions, you need Bordas Mineral Management. Our passion is helping mineral owners protect and expand their mineral wealth. Our examiners tell you whether you're being treated fairly and getting paid what is rightfully yours. Bordas Mineral Management. Be protected. Have peace of mind.
Welcome back to the show. It's time to talk sports, and we'll start in Pittsburgh, where the Steelers, with a disappointing 17-10 loss at home at Heinz Field, you know, this past weekend against the Buffalo Bills, Buffalo clinched a playoff spot with that victory. And, you know, the Steelers, you know, the defense has continued to carry this team, but, you know, Devlin Hodges ducked with 4 interceptions. The offense has only produced 8 touchdowns in the last 7 games. There's been some defensive touchdowns. There's been a punt return for a touchdown, but the offense only 8 touchdowns in the last 7 games. And really, if the Steelers had any semblance of an offense, they'd be a Super Bowl contender right now. As it is, still in the second wild card spot in the AFC. Tennessee losing this weekend certainly helped, but Steelers still in position to get into the playoffs. They went out and they're in. If they lose one of these, they're going to need some help. But this week have a game at the Jets, who just aren't very good. You'll get to see Le'Veon Bell, see how he's doing. But then next week, the Ravens, who may be resting starters if the Ravens can pull out a win this week, which would be a big plus for the Steelers if Lamar Jackson and company aren't playing because they're playing their backups. But, you know, the big thing is, does it matter? I mean, if the Steelers get into the playoffs anyway, is there enough offense to even do anything once they're in there? I mean, I guess the answer is who knows. You like to have that opportunity because the defense is so good. I mean, and you look at that defense and how many guys are going to the Pro Bowl, which was announced this week, and you've got guys like Cam Hayward, T.J. Watt, Minkah Fitzpatrick, guys that are really getting a lot of recognition and have had outstanding years. But it's just a matter of is there going to be enough offense there. So I think the Steelers beat the Jets this week just because the Jets aren't a very good team. I think Steelers can put 24 points or so on the board, but be interested to see what happens in the quarterback position here these last couple games and how that shakes out. So I'll take the Steelers this week, but they got to find a way to get some offense generated. College football, a couple games worth checking in on this Saturday. 7:30, number 19 Boise State versus Washington. That game's right here on WTRF on ABC at 7:30. That's the Las Vegas Bowl, and this is Chris Peterson's last game at Washington. He's announced his retirement. Of course, he's going against his former team, Boise State, where he really made his name. And, I think Chris Peterson gets the win to close out his career. Washington beats Boise State in this one, even though Boise State's ranked number 19. I think Washington's going to have too much firepower for them. And then on Monday, a game worth watching too. Marshall takes on University of Central Florida on ESPN at 2:30 in the afternoon. Strange for a Monday day, but it's 2 days before Christmas. That's the Gasparilla Bowl. UCF 9-3 is now a disappointment, believe it or not, for them with the years they've had recently. Marshall was upset by Charlotte to keep them out of the Conference USA title game. And UCF's been in a lot of big games in the last couple of years. They have a lot of talent. I think they win this game and beat the Thundering Herd in the Gasparilla Bowl. But that, I think, could be an interesting game to watch, even though UCF's a pretty sizable favorite. But I want to talk about the playoffs a little bit, and we'll talk more about this next week. But, 4 teams, and I've been a big proponent over a number of years now for an 8-team playoff. I think the conference champions from the Power 5 should be in every year. I mean, the Pac-12's left out this year again, and really, who's to say, that the Pac-12 wasn't, so great that they, that's why these teams had a couple losses, that maybe the conference was deeper, et cetera. I just like the idea of the conference champions getting in, then a group of 5, the highest ranked group of 5 getting in would be fine by me. That'd be Memphis this year, and then 2 wild cards, and that'd shake down with, number 1 LSU versus number 8 Memphis as the seeding would go, Ohio State versus Baylor, Clemson versus Oregon, Oklahoma versus Georgia. That gives you the Pac-12, it gives you the group of 5 team, and it gives you a wild card kind of from the SEC and the Big 12, which I think, a case can be made those are the 2 teams. Baylor's only lost to Oklahoma. Both their losses to them, they could be the best team for all we know. So I'd like to see an 8-team playoff sometime soon, but we'll talk all about the playoffs next week on the show. In the meantime, have a very, very wonderful and Merry Christmas. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next time on the Jamie Bordas Show.